where legends are born and posters are forged in the fires of creativity. Rap Armageddon is here, y'all, and it's about to go down, and I love it. Metro Boomin is saying pick a side. Kung Fu Kenny has drawn first blood, and the stage is set for an epic showdown. And right before summer, I know I'm about to hear some great music this summer. It's only good music that can come from this. Prepare to witness the clash of the titans as we bring together some of hip-hop's most iconic figures by creating a rap Civil War poster design in Photoshop. Now this is more than just design. This is the art of war, hip-hop style. It is 1200 by 1500. What you're gonna do is you're gonna double that. So you want it to be 2400 by 1500. And that's going to give you a two slide carousel on. Go to view, go to guides, go to vertical guide and type in 50%. I give you a guide right directly in the middle of your collage. Went ahead and dropped all my elements in. I did split them up between Team Future and Team Drake. Basically for this, if you haven't watched a lot of my tutorials, go back and watch a few of them. All you do is select subject. Now, that's all I did for all of these. Select subject to remove the background. Everybody was asking me. Select subject. So when I do select subject, it creates a selection around the object. And then all I do is down at the bottom, you click and create a mask. And the mask is the circle with the square around it. Okay? I have done that same thing for both sides. And now I'm going to start playing around a little bit with some of the fading of some of the objects. So basically for this particular one, all you do is go on that mask and you go paint a white on the mask or paint black on the mask, depending on what your mask is. So all I'm doing right now is going to erase some of the things because really all I want is the head of the people. So I'm trying to put them more in like a Mount Rushmore looking thing inside of Drake's head to give it that double exposure type of feeling. So that's all I'm doing. And I did that. I do this for both sides. So go in and mask everything. So next we're going to go ahead and go into camera raw filter and make a few adjustments for some of the images. I do this for all of the images only because I want that nice clarity, that nice smooth color reduction. I use a little dehaze. I use a little exposure. And depending on the color or the temperature of the image for this particular one, for the right side images, I did them a little cooler for the temperature. And then for the left side images, I did the temperature a little bit warmer. Okay, so now we have to retouch these images. After we add the camera raw filter into them, after we already kind of set where they're going to be, we have to go ahead and retouch them a little bit because obviously images aren't perfect when they come in. So for me, I used to start with burn and dodge. That's for everything. I do want to do a tutorial when I go through all of them, like the exposure, the burn and dodge, the color fill, like the differences between all of them. So that might be one of the videos coming up in the next couple of weeks. Comment below if that's something that you would like to see as well. But anyways, for this particular retouching, what we're going to do is create a new layer. Press Shift F5. That's going to give you a 50% gray layer. And on this layer, you're going to set it to overlay. After you set it to overlay, then you're going to head over to the dodge tool and the burn tool. For both of them, for burn, you're going to go ahead and burn the shadows. Keep the exposure around 25%. For the lightning, you're going to go ahead to dodge highlights. You're going to keep that same thing around 25%. I'm going to go ahead and create a new layer, a new exposure layer. And then for that new exposure, you're going to go ahead and drop the exposure down just a little bit. And then this, we're going to go ahead and invert that mask. So now you don't see anything. And now we're just going to paint back some of that exposure. Basically, we're going to use this like as shadows in the face to try to figure out where the shadows are going to be. So we're just painting into where we want some of the darker shadows to be for this particular image. And I'm just quickly going to go ahead and brush through that right now and give it some depth. And like I said, whatever I do on the right side, I do on the left side. So if you got to create that exposure layer, that dodge burn layer, create the layers for both sides. So anything that I'm saying that's on one side is the same thing I did for the other side. So I don't want you guys feeling like, oh, I didn't show you everything. I'm like, literally, it's the same for both sides. So now what I'm doing is I'm creating a new layer so I can go ahead and add some drop shadow. So you can also drop shadow during blending. But like I said, when I add the drop shadow into it, you can go ahead and control the shadow just a little bit better. And that shadow is, like I said, around 15 to 20%. And like you can see, you create that layer over top of where you want the shadows to show up. And I do that, like I said, for both sides. Each individual character has their own type of shadow in there. Okay, so now let's add some of these highlights. All right, so for the highlights, what we're gonna do is create a solid layer. We're gonna make the solid layer white. All right, invert the solid layer, and then we're gonna go ahead and start painting onto the mask with the opposite brush. I use a 52 hardness brush with the exposure around like somewhere between 80 to 100% for the outline highlights. And then what I do for these as well, for some of them, when I do it for the hard brush, I take that layer and I make it a Gaussian blur. So I go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and I blur it a little bit. It just gives it a softer feeling. For Wayne in this image, I did an inner glow because the way his shadows were set up, it just looked a little bit better than me actually going in there and adding the highlights. I don't know why that is. And this inner glow effect only worked for him specifically. All right, so now what I'm doing is, like I said, I went and created that solid color layer for the highlights for each individual image. That means each individual image. Any images you see on here that's a person has a solid color layer with highlights attached to them. And then all you're going to do, like I said, is paint in the highlights where you want to see the highlights at. And as you can see, when you collapse it, they're all going to go back into the Team Drake folder. So all these images and all these adjustments are in the Team Drake folder. And now, right now, what you see me doing is that burn and dodge layer. I am clipping that mask to the overall images. So I did split the folder up to Team Drake has all of the heads in one folder. So that's the Team Drake head folder. Then I have the Team Drake main folder, and then I have that's it. So like the Team Drake main folder, inside that folder is a heads folder with all the heads in it, with all the adjustments, and then the bottom layer, which is the Drake adjustment layer. Okay. And you're going to do that for both sides. Like I said, I'm doing the same adjustments on the right side that I just did for Drake on the left side. So I don't want to talk through every little step that I did on the left side, except for the specifics that we'll explain at the end. But pretty much it's the same thing. Make sure you add your burn and your dodge for retouching. Make sure you add your camera raw filter for retouching. And then make sure you add your highlights to give it that extra oomph. Like I said, same thing. You add your drop shadow. I add my exposure in there. I paint back in where I want some exposure to happen at. More control. Go ahead and add the burn and the dodge. We back on the Drake side. Okay, so with the Drake side now is after all the images are placed up and everything like that, what we have to do is we have to add some sort of color correction to it. So both the sides kind of have their own vibe, which is the blue side and the red side. So for the Drake side, what we're going to do is add that gradient map, which is a black and white gradient map. I always start with that. Make sure you just play around with the blending mode. Sometimes I know what I want to use. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes the blending mode gives me like a direction of like the feel I want to do. So for this one in particular, I think I just went darker color, and then I dropped down the opacity a little bit. Now after that, you're going to go ahead and add a nice little color balance, and you want to adjust the color balance. For me, for this one, I did bluish hues using the color balance. Boom. Now the next thing I do is I added another gradient map, and with this gradient map, I added a photogenic map onto it, which was like a blue photogenic style. Of course, I use the blending mode. For this one, I use, I believe, overlay or something like that, and I just drop down the opacity. Okay, same thing on future side. The same adjustments. Like I said, the black and white gradient map, photogenic gradient map on top of that with the color balance. But this time, the color balance, you're going to shift the colors balance to obviously the red side. And then for the photogenic gradient map on top of that, you want to do like a red, black, whitish, or red, black, orangish, whitish, yellowish gradient. All right, so for this, after you do all that good stuff, adding your gradient maps and everything, you're gonna go ahead and add your highlights. Same thing. Every person on this thing has their own solid color layer that's clip masked to that layer. So if you go and take a look right now at my layers, You can see each one has a clipping mask to that layer. So one thing I did on this one, like I said before, that I didn't do on the other side was an exposure layer that clips over everything. So on this particular exposure layer, I set the exposure layer to obviously like normal, but like in the 80th range. And then I obviously inverted that mask and I painted back on specifically the areas that I wanted to make a little bit brighter. I think the glow and the highlights popped a little bit better when I did the exposure that way. So now what I did was I used Midjourney, shoot me. I used AI to create these backgrounds for both sides. This one I typed in like Atlanta dystopia. I was looking for like that Walking Dead feel because it's like the end of the world, Civil War type thing. So that's kind of where I went with the warmer side on. And then I went Toronto bluish on the right side for Drake. And all I did was, like I said, instead of going ahead and delete what I wanted to delete, I just created a mask on the background layer and painted away the mask just so, like I said, so I can get it only on one side. As you can see here, this is a Toronto image that I placed. I did the same thing, created a mask, and I painted off of the future side to make sure only that one showed. And then in the middle, like I said, I masked them both. So it was like a good, perfect merge right in the middle of both of them. So now it's like we're getting to the end where it's like the finishing touches and stuff like that. I always create a new layer underneath the main layers. Create a brush. That brush is a soft brush with 0% hardness. And then you can make it a linear dodge layer or a lighten layer with whatever color you're trying to bring out. So for the right side, I did like a blue. That's what you'll see here. And then for the right side, I did like an orange pop color. And that, I think that just brings out the popness of, I don't know, the imagery. Like it just separates the background from the main image without having like a drop shadow or something regular like that. All right, so now I'm creating like a vignette around everything. So I created a gradient map, black to white, or black to nothing really. It's black to transparent, and create a radial. And then I just scaled the radial far out just so it's like enough, but it brings attention to the midpoint, which is the images. Now I'm adding a few texts. I used either Dirk Wide or this other one that I can't pronounce. It's like a Cuban over the skirt. I don't know. I can't pronounce it. It's like mad just letters jumbled up together. But you can just use Dirk Wide or Monument. I simply just typed in whose side are you on? Because Metro said it, not me. Okay, he said it, not me. He said pick a side, stay on that side. Me, I really don't have a side. I have rappers on both sides that I love. I just love music, so I don't give a damn whose side. I'm in the middle. Okay, I don't got no side. You know what I'm saying? But I guess gun to my head, I gotta go on that left side because I feel like I listen to more of their type of music than the right side. I listen to Drake, but like, nah, both sides is kind of tough. But I don't know, Drake's side is kind of weak. I don't know. Let me know y'all thoughts. Whose side are you on down below? But anyways, I put that in right in the middle, as well as I added some other text, but we're gonna get to that because I really didn't want to do a tutorial on just the text because the text took me like a whole nother 30-40 minutes because I was trying to figure out what text, how I wanted it. I ended up just using a template from Envato Elements with cinematic titles, and I just used like a stone type vibe for the hip-hop Civil War type thing. So now what I'm doing is I'm adding like a drop shadow to both images, but it's really a really faint drop shadow. Now I also added an outer glow on both of them too. Like I said, respectively, the orange on the left side and a light blue on the right side for the outer glow. You can slow down to kind of view the settings. Also, I did an inner glow for future side. For Drake's side, for some reason it wasn't working, but for future side I added like another orangey, yellowy inner glow, and I set that to screen and with a little choke on there. So like I said, now you're seeing the outer glow, woo, woo, woo. And as you can see, when I'm trying to add the inner glow, it's like the mask kept showing up. So I was like, I just like dub it. I just do its own highlights specifically for that one. For the Drake one, all I did was create a solid layer, do the blue, and then I just do the same thing that I did with everything else. I just painted in around the highlights because I really wanted like a pop of highlight, but for some reason it wasn't showing up. To give that extra pop to the characters on the left, like I mentioned, I created a black color fill layer. I did do black color fill for both sides in order to layer the head images on top of the main head image. Okay, so with the solid color layer, all you do is do the solid color layer, invert the mask, and paint away where you're actually going to see the person's face. This is one thing I did on one side that I did not do on the other side. So for future side, it was going to be like a little bit warmer, hot type of vibe. So I do want to kind of show that. So exposure effect that it's giving to the images right now. And as you can see, that's what I'm painting array right now. The color fill. Once again, some final touches. I added some sparks, which I said you can get on in Violet Elements. And I feel like it just matched like flame, hot, sparks. Set that to screen. Let that be. I duplicated that layer. I used hue and saturation to change the color to blue. And I used that same effect on the right side to give it like a snow flurries type of effect. I also added some birds to the Toronto stuff because I just felt like, I don't know, birds, Toronto, he's an owl. I just felt like it worked together. I put a helicopter on future side just because if you've ever lived in Atlanta or came to Atlanta, Atlanta is home of the helicopters. It's like LA, but like not LA. Like you gonna hear a helicopter when they chasing them boys. You gonna hear that helicopter for sure. There, I added a little exposure layer, clip mask to the helicopter to bring down the darkness of it a little bit. I also duplicated the helicopter, added the motion blur to the second helicopter, layered it underneath, and to give it just more of a motiony type of feeling. And I just moved that back a little bit so it looks like the helicopter was flying in. And then I placed that up at the top. And then for that also I added like a little outer glow on the helicopter as well. Another final touch that I did add was these flames right here. I added the flames because like I said, it's hot. And I feel like flames represent hot very well. So I just screened that. And then for the right side, I used frozen overlays. So I just typed in frozen overlays, frozen ice overlays. And I did the same thing, screen. And I just masked away where I didn't want it to show up at. But it felt a little empty at the bottom. So I added a little bit of smoke on his side too. Because I feel like when it's ice, it's like, it got like that. It has that like smoky, foggy energy when it's like snowy. So I just felt like it worked the best. And I just did a screen on that layer. So now for the final adjustments, you have to collapse the whole layer. So take the Team Drake folder, take the Team Future folder, combine it into one, right? It's called that folder the main folder. I always duplicate it just because I like the original layer at the bottom in case I need to start a new PSD. So I would do that, have the main layer, then have another main layer. So now you have two main layers with both of the folders inside of that layer. I would save that and then create a new document at this point. But if you don't want to do that, it's perfectly fine. What you're going to do is you're going to take that main layer on top of the copy and you're going to convert, and then you're going to convert that to a smart object. With that, you can make all the adjustments and stuff without actually affecting the actual image itself. And you could still go in there and move stuff around in case you need to swap out a face, swap out a background. Now everything is collapsed. Everything is converted to the smart object. You're going to go and click on the smart object. You're going to go up there, go to camera, raw filter. You're going to make just a few slight adjustments. I just added a little bit of extra clarity for this. I also added the temperature a little bit, just a little bit of exposure. The dehaze, same thing. I add a little bit of curves to bring that darkness out. And then lastly, like I said, I always add like a little bit of color reduction just to smooth everything out. Final touches, you're going to go ahead and create that new layer again. Shift F5, 50% gray. But this time you're going to go up there and noise, add noise. We're going to add noise. We're going to add the color noise. You can click the button off of monochrome. And then like I said, I do uniform, but you could do Gaussian, doesn't matter. Pick a percentage. I try to keep mine between 5 and 20 just because it's not a lot. And then you're going to set that layer to the blending mode. You're going to set that to about either soft light or hard light. A hard light, you're going to go ahead and take the opacity all the way down. Soft light, it depends on your image. Like I said, it really just depends. But I usually do a hard light and then bring the opacity down because I feel like sometimes the grain comes out a little bit better. But I have used soft light in the past as well. Okay, next thing is going to be lens distortion. The lens distortion is going to give you like that 3D RGB chromatic aberration effect. So you just go up to the top right here, filter, lens correction. This is going to pop up and then you literally go to custom and then you're going to just change the sliders to what you feel like. You can have it really strong or subtle. It's all to your liking. So now what I did is I duplicated that main image. So now you have two smart objects with the same settings. With the one on top, what you're going to do is make sure your colors are black and white. And then after that, you're going to go up to filter gallery. And then you're going to go to diffusion glow under distort. After there, you're going to like take the grain. I usually for this one, I put it down to 1 or 0 depending on your image. And then change the glow amount and then the clear amount, like I said, based on your image. And then that's going to give you like a finished product. And now it's going to look really glowy like. But unless you're going for that like that dream type of vibe, that wasn't the vibe for here. I just wanted that nice soft glow. I always set this to like soft light, hard light, sometimes lighten. But for this one, I did hard light and just brought the opacity down a little bit. I did add an exposure adjustment layer over this. You don't really need it, but it was a little bit too bright. So all I did was like bring down the exposure just a little bit and the gamma correction just a little bit. Now, once again, we get to the text. I added the whose side are we on? We did that already. I did the united we stand, divided we fall. And I went and grabbed the Civil War, but then I realized it probably doesn't fit this theme. All right, so that's pretty much it for the settings and adjustments. I hope I explained that to the best of my ability. Like I said, I'm still trying to figure out what's working the best for this particular style of video and stuff like that. So technically this is a tutorial because I literally just told you every step to make this. Also, if you play this in slow motion without any audio, you can see what I do a little bit better. You can see some of the settings if you want to copy them. I really like how it came out. I try to give it the ice cold Toronto feeling versus the fiery Atlanta hot summer type of feeling to give it a good contrast of like good versus evil or something like that. And I liked how I was able to kind of use double exposure in the making of this as well. Now, if you want to see more dope content like this, please smash that subscribe button and hit that like button so you don't miss a drop. If you could for me too, please check out the links below. The Discord, we starting to get that moving, so drop your designs in there. I just want to see what you guys are working on or how you guys are using these tutorials in real life. One last thing, if you guys are interested in getting some of my project files to like play with and manipulate from, drop a comment down below and go in the general chat of the Discord and like leave the word project files in this. So then if enough people hit me up about project files, I'll definitely add that to the website so then you guys can just download the project files. That's it for me. I'm gonna check y'all next time, man. Just remember, you guys, keep creating, keep hustling, and most importantly, keep learning. I'm Ollie Dope and I'm checking out. Until next time. Yes, sir.